I slept fitfully in a bed that felt more like a cloud than furniture. The guest room was nicer than any hotel I'd ever stayed in, with sheets that probably had a thread count higher than my SAT score. But I tossed and turned, dreaming of icy blue eyes and hospital bills. When I woke up, there was a garment bag hanging on the door. A note was attached. "Wear this. Dinner is at 7. Don't be late. V." I unzipped it. Inside was a dress, a simple, elegant navy blue sheath dress that looked modest but undeniably expensive. At the bottom of the bag sat a pair of nude heels. I spent the day pacing the massive apartment, trying to study for my literature exam, but the words swam on the page. By 6 p.m., my nerves were frayed. I showered, did my hair in a neat bun, and put on the dress. It fit perfectly. Of course it does, I thought bitterly. She probably had me sized by lasers while I was sleeping. At 6:45 p.m., I walked out into the living room. Vivian was standing by the window, swirling a glass of wine. She was wearing a tailored black jumpsuit with a deep V neckline, sharp and commanding. When she heard my heels clicking on the marble, she turned. Her eyes swept over me, starting at my shoes and moving slowly up to my face. For a moment, her expression softened, the CEO mask slipping just a fraction. "Adequate," she said finally. "High praise," I muttered. "Come here," she commanded. I walked over. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, a simple platinum band with a diamond that wasn't gaudy but definitely sparkled in the dim light. "Give me your hand." I held out my left hand. She slid the ring onto my finger. It was cold and heavy. "Keep it on," she said, her voice low. "Never take it off in public." Before I could respond, the elevator chimed. "Showtime," Vivian whispered. She grabbed my hand, interlacing our fingers. Her grip was firm, her palm warm. "Smile, darling." The elevator doors opened, and an older couple stepped out. Vivian's mother, Eleanor Sterling, looked exactly like an older, terrifying version of Vivian. Same sharp cheekbones, same icy eyes, but with a helmet of steel gray hair. Her father, Robert, was a stout man with a red face, who looked like he'd rather be on a golf course. "Vivian," Eleanor said, stepping into the room and looking around as if searching for dust. "You didn't answer my calls today." "I was busy, Mother," Vivian said smoothly. She squeezed my hand, pulling me slightly forward. "Mother, Father, I'd like you to meet Harper, my wife." Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. Eleanor stared at me. She looked at my dress, my hair, my shoes. Then she looked at our joined hands. "Wife?" Eleanor repeated, the word tasting like lemon in her mouth. "Since when?" "Since last night," Vivian said, smiling a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We eloped." "Eloped?" Robert blustered. "Vivian, have you lost your mind? What about the merger with the Kensington Group? Their son—" "I'm not marrying their son, Father," Vivian cut in sharply. "I'm married to Harper, and I'm very happy." She turned to me, her eyes softening into a look of pure adoration that made so convincing it made my stomach flip. "Aren't we, darling?" "Yes," I squeaked. I cleared my throat, channeling my inner actress. "Yes, we couldn't wait. We're just so in love." Eleanor narrowed her eyes. She walked up to me, stopping inches from my face. "And who exactly are you?" she asked. "I don't recognize your family name. Evans? Are you from the Boston Evans?" "No," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm a student at the university." "A student," Eleanor scoffed. "A child. Vivian, this is ridiculous. You've picked up a stray puppy to spite me." "She is not a stray," Vivian said, her voice dropping to that dangerous, quiet tone she had used on the guy at the bus stop. "She is my wife, and you will treat her with respect in my home." The tension in the room was thick as to choke. Robert looked uncomfortable. Eleanor looked furious. "Dinner is served," Vivian said breezily, steering me toward the dining room. The dinner was an interrogation. "Where did you meet?" Eleanor asked, stabbing her salad. The library, I said quickly. I dropped my books. Vivian helped me pick them up. Vivian doesn't go to the library, Eleanor said. She has assistants for that. I was doing research for my lecture, Vivian lied effortlessly. I saw her struggling with a stack of Victorian novels. It was charming. And what do your parents do, Harper? Robert asked. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. They passed away a long time ago. An awkward silence fell. I see, Eleanor said, not sounding sorry at all. So you have no family, no connections, and no money, I assume. Mother, Vivian warned. I'm just asking the practical questions, Eleanor snapped. Vivian, you didn't sign a prenup, did you? You just married a penniless orphan in the middle of the night. I have a grandfather, I said, my voice surprisingly strong. I put my fork down. He raised me. He's a good man, and I didn't marry Vivian for her money. Oh, Eleanor raised her eyebrow. Then why did you marry her? For her sparkling personality? I looked at Vivian. She was watching me, her face impassive, waiting to see if I would crack. I took a deep breath. I married her because she sees me. It wasn't part of the script. Most people look right through me, but Vivian, she sees me. She's strong and she's intimidating, yes, but she also saved me from a creep at a bus stop when no one else would. She's protective, and she makes me feel safe. I realized with a start that I wasn't lying. Vivian stared at me, her lips slightly parted. For a moment, the mask was completely gone. She looked surprised. Eleanor sniffed, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. Well, that was a very touching speech, but love doesn't run a conglomerate, my dear. She stood up. Robert, we're leaving. I have a headache. But dessert, Robert started. Now, Robert. Eleanor walked to the elevator, pausing to look back at Vivian. This isn't over, Vivian. If this is a game, you will lose. The elevator doors closed. The silence returned to the penthouse. I slumped in my chair, exhaling a breath I felt like I'd been holding for an hour. Did I pass? I asked weakly. Vivian didn't answer immediately. She picked up her wineglass and drained it. Then she looked at me, her eyes dark and intense. You off script, she said. I improvised, I defended. Your mother is terrifying. I had to say something real. Vivian stood up and walked around the table until she was standing behind my chair. She leaned down, her lips close to my ear. I could feel the heat radiating off her. Safe? You think I'm safe, Harper? I shivered. I am not safe, Vivian murmured. Don't forget that. She pulled back and walked toward her room. Good job tonight. The medical transfer for your grandfather has been processed. He starts the new treatment tomorrow. She disappeared into her room, shutting the door. I looked down at the platinum ring on my finger. It sparkled under the chandelier. Not safe, I thought. Definitely not safe. The next few weeks fell into a bizarre, silent rhythm. I lived in a palace in the sky, but I felt like a ghost haunting the halls. Vivian was a phantom. She left before I woke up and returned after I was asleep. The only proof of her existence was the smell of her coffee in the morning and the occasional note left on the counter. Cleaner coming at 10 or don't wait up. Grandpa was doing better. The new private doctors Vivian hired were miracle workers. When I visited him, he looked more colorful, more alive. He kept asking when he could meet my husband. I kept making excuses. Lying to him was becoming a second language. Then came the first day of my internship. I'd applied to Sterling Corp's marketing department months ago, long before I met Vivian. It was a prestigious program, and I needed the credits to graduate. When I got the acceptance email, I almost declined. Working in the same building as my wife seemed like a recipe for disaster. But Vivian had just shrugged when I told her. It's a big building, Harper. I doubt our paths will cross. Just don't embarrass me. Monday morning, I stood in the gleaming lobby of Sterling Corp, clutching my ID badge. Dude, look at this place. Noah slammed his hand onto my shoulder, nearly making me drop my coffee. He was grinning like a maniac, wearing a tie that was slightly crooked. "Noah," I hissed, "keep it down." "I can't believe we both got in," he said, slinging his arm around my neck and leaning his heavy weight on me. "We're gonna be corporate slaves together. Coffee runs, Xerox machines, the dream." I laughed, despite my nerves. Noah always knew how to ground me. "Just don't get fired on the first day, okay?" "No promises." "Hey, fix my tie. I think I strangled myself." I rolled my eyes and turned to face him, reaching up to adjust the knot of his cheap polyester tie. "You're hopeless. You have to look professional, Noah. This isn't the frat house." Yeah, Mom." He grinned down at me, his face close to mine. "Thanks, Harps. You're the best." Ding! The sound of the executive elevator opening was sharp, like a bell tolling. The lobby went quiet. I froze. My hands were still on Noah's tie. Vivian walked out of the private elevator. She was flanked by 3 assistants and a balding man who looked terrified. She was wearing a blood-red suit today, sharp as could cut glass. She was typing on her phone, not looking up. Then she stopped. Slowly, her head turned. Her eyes scanned Galavi and landed directly on us, on my hands on Noah's chest, on Noah's arm draped casually around me. The air in the lobby seemed to vanish. Vivian handed her phone to an assistant without looking away from me. She changed direction, her heels clicking ominously against the marble floor as she walked straight towards us. Noah's smile faltered. Harper, is that the CEO? Why is she coming over here?" "Let go of me," I whispered through gritted teeth. "What? Let go!" Before Noah could move, Vivian was there. She stopped 3 feet away, her presence so commanding that people nearby actually stepped back. "Miss Evans," she said. Her voice was professional, cold, and utterly terrifying. "Miss Sterling?" I stammered, dropping my hands to my sides. Vivian's eyes flicked to Noah, then to his arm, which was still hovering near me. She looked at him like he was a cockroach she'd found in her salad. "And who is this?" she asked. "Noah Miller. Intern, nice to meet you, ma'am. Big fan of the, building." Vivian didn't take his hand. She stared at it until Noah awkwardly pulled it back, wiping it on his pants. "Mr. Miller, Human Resources has a very strict policy regarding public displays of affection in the lobby. We are a Fortune 500 company, not a dating service." Noah turned bright red. "Oh, no, we're not. We're just friends. Harper's my best friend. I don't care." Vivian cut him off. She looked back at me. Her eyes were burning with something that looked suspiciously like anger. "Fix your blazer, Miss Evans. You look unkempt." My face flushed hot. My blazer was fine. "Yes, ma'am," I mumbled. "See it that it doesn't happen again." She turned on her heel and marched away, her entourage scrambling to keep up. Noah let out a long, low whistle. "Sheesh, the Ice Queen lives up to the name. She hates us." I watched her retreating back, my heart pounding. She didn't hate us, she was jealous, and that terrified me more than her anger ever could. My assignment was on the 12th floor, marketing. I spent the morning organizing files and getting coffee for a woman named Karen who seemed to think intern was a synonym for slave. At around 2 p.m., my desk phone rang. "Harper Evans," I answered. "My office. Now." Click. I stared at the receiver. It was Vivian. I took the elevator up to the top floor, the executive suite. The secretary, a woman with glasses named Mrs. Higgins, gave me a pitying look. "Go right in, dear." I opened the heavy oak double doors. Vivian was sitting behind a massive glass desk, staring out the window at the city skyline. She didn't turn around when I entered. "Close the door," she said. I closed it. "You called?" Vivian swiveled her chair around. She looked calm, but her knuckles were white where she gripped the armrests. "Noah Miller," she said. "He's my friend," I said immediately, stepping forward.
We've known each other since freshman year. There is nothing going on between us." "I didn't ask for his biography," Vivian snapped. She stood up and walked around the desk, leaning against the edge of it. She crossed her arms. "I care about my image, Harper. What do you think it looks like when my wife is fondling another man in the lobby of my company?" "I was fixing his tie," I exclaimed, "and nobody knows I'm your wife. You made sure of that." "I know," she shouted back. The volume of her voice startled us both. Vivian Sterling didn't shout. She decimated people with whispers. She took a breath, composing herself. She walked towards me, stopping just inside my personal space. The scent of her expensive perfume filled my senses. "You signed a contract," she said, her voice lower now, dangerous. "You belong to me, on paper, and until that paper expires, I don't want another man touching you. Is that clear?" My breath hitched. "Are you jealous?" Vivian froze. Her eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. "Don't be ridiculous," she scoffed. "Jealousy implies emotion. This is about possession. You are my asset." "I'm a person, Vivian, not a stock option." She stared at me, her gaze dropping to my lips. For a second, the air between us crackled with electricity. She reached out, her hand hovering near my face, as if she wanted to touch me. "Knock, knock." The door opened. "Miss Sterling, your 2:30 is here." Vivian snatched her hand back as if she'd been burned. The mask slammed back into place instantly. "Send them in," she said to the secretary. She turned her back to me. "Get out, Harper. Go back to work." I fled the office, my heart racing. As I waited for the elevator, I saw a woman walking down the hall towards Vivian's office. She was tall, with perfectly coiffed blonde hair and a predator's smile. She walked like she owned the place. She glanced at me as she passed, her eyes lingering on my cheap intern badge with a sneer. "Cute," she muttered to herself. She breezed past the secretary and walked right into Vivian's office without knocking. "Vivian, darling," I heard her exclaim before the door closed. I stood there, a cold pit forming in my stomach. That was Chloe. I recognized her from the society pages. The rival had arrived.
"That," Noah whispered, leaning over his lukewarm vending machine coffee, "is Chloe Kensington." We were huddled in the break room on the 12th floor. I had just described the blonde woman who had marched into Vivian's office like she owned the deed to the building. "Kensington?" I asked. "Like the hotel chain?" "The very same," Noah said, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "Old money, filthy rich. Her family and the Sterlings go way back. Rumor has it Chloe has been trying to get into Vivian's portfolio since preschool." "She called her darling," I muttered, stabbing my salad with a plastic fork. "Yikes," Noah grimaced. "Look, everyone knows Chloe is obsessed. She's like a barnacle in Chanel. If she saw you coming out of Vivian's office looking flustered, well, watch your back, Harps. She eats interns for breakfast." I felt a cold shiver that had nothing to do with the office air conditioning. That night, the atmosphere in the penthouse was suffocating. Vivian was pacing the living room when I walked in, a tumbler of scotch in her hand. She had discarded her blazer, and her white shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, a rare sign of disarray. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. I dropped my bag on the sofa. "Chloe?" Vivian stopped pacing and looked at me sharply. "You met her?" "I saw her, and Noah told me the rest." Vivian sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. "Chloe is persistent. She stopped by to congratulate me. Apparently, my mother told her about our marriage. Chloe didn't take it well." "What does that mean for us?" "It means," Vivian said, walking over to the window to stare at the city lights, "that rumors are already starting. People are saying the marriage is a sham, a business deal to secure my inheritance. If the board believes that, I lose the CEO position." She turned to face me. The city lights haloed her silhouette, making her look invincible and fragile at all once. "We need to prove them wrong. We need to be seen, happy, in love." "How?" I asked. "Pack a bag, Harper," she said. "We're going on our honeymoon." 2 days later, I was stepping off a private jet onto the tarmac of a tropical island. The air was thick, hot, and smelled of salt and hibiscus. Guam, Vivian said, adjusting her sunglasses. Far enough to be private, close enough for the paparazzi to accidentally find us. A black car whisked us away to a resort that looked less like a hotel and more like a fever dream of luxury. Our suite was a private villa on the water with a glass floor in the living room showing the turquoise ocean beneath. One bedroom, I noted, looking at the massive king-sized bed draped in white mosquito netting. It's a honeymoon suite, Vivian said dryly, tossing her suitcase on a bench. 2 beds would defeat the purpose. She walked out onto the private deck. I followed her. The view was incredible. Endless ocean, white sand, and palm trees swaying in the breeze. For a second, I forgot about the contract, the lies, and the sick grandfather back home. It's beautiful, I breathed. Vivian leaned against the railing, the sea breeze catching strands of her dark hair. It's a stage, Harper. Don't forget that. Right, I said, the magic instantly evaporating. A stage. Vivian! A high-pitched voice shattered the peace. I froze. I knew that voice. Vivian stiffened, her knuckles turning white on the railing. No, she wouldn't. We both looked down toward the beach below our villa. Standing there, wearing a neon pink bikini and a sheer cover-up, waving frantically, was Chloe Kensington. Surprise! Chloe screamed, shielding her eyes from the sun. I just happened to be in the neighborhood. Isn't that crazy? Vivian closed her eyes and let out a long, slow breath. I am going to kill her. Dinner that night was a disaster. Chloe had somehow managed to invite herself to our table. We sat on the terrace, the ocean waves crashing nearby, while Chloe monopolized the conversation. So, Harper, Chloe said, sipping her martini and looking at me with dead eyes, Vivian tells me you're a student. Literature? How quaint. What do you plan to do with that? Teach? Or just live off Vivian's trust fund? Chloe, Vivian warned, her voice low. I'm just asking, Chloe laughed, a tinkling fake sound. I mean, it's quite the Cinderella story, isn't it? One day you're nobody, the next you're wearing a sterling ring. It makes one wonder what kind of skills you have to snag a woman like Vivian. My face burned. I gripped my fork, imagining jamming it into the tablecloth. I plan to work, I said, keeping my voice steady. I'm interning at Sterling Corp right now, in marketing. An intern? Chloe cackled. Oh, Vivian, that is rich. You married the help. That is so modern of you. That's enough, Vivian said. She slammed her wine glass down hard enough that the stem nearly snapped. Chloe stopped laughing instantly. Harper is intelligent, driven, and kind. Attributes you wouldn't understand, Chloe, since you've never had to work for a single thing. The table went silent. Chloe's mouth fell open. Vivian stood up and extended her hand to me. Come, darling, she said, her voice softening as she looked at me. Let's go for a walk. The air here is getting stale. I took her hand. We walked away, leaving Chloe fuming at the table. We walked in silence down the beach, the sand cool under our feet. My heart was pounding. Vivian had defended me, publicly, fiercely. You didn't have to do that, I said quietly. Yes, I did, Vivian replied, not looking at me. She was still holding my hand. She was insulting my wife. Your fake wife, I corrected. Vivian stopped walking. She turned to me, the moonlight reflecting in her eyes. The sound of the ocean filled the space between us. Harper, she said, stepping closer, for a fake wife, you are becoming remarkably difficult to ignore. She reached out, her fingers brushing a stray hair from my forehead. Her touch was gentle, hesitant. The no-touching rule felt a million miles away. Vivian? I whispered. She leaned in, her mirror dropping to my lips. I think we need to make sure Chloe sees this. But as her lips met mine, I knew Chloe wasn't watching. The beach was empty. And this time, there was no audience, just us. It started slow, a test, but then Vivian sighed against my mouth and the kiss deepened. It was hungry, desperate, and confusingly real. I wrapped my arms around her neck, pulling her closer, feeling the frantic beat of her heart against my chest.
For a moment, on that dark beach, the contract didn't exist. Then, a camera flash blinded us from the bushes. Vivian pulled back instantly, breathless and wild-eyed. She looked toward the tree line. Paparazzi? No, Vivian said, her face hardening into ice. Worse, Chloe.
And that wraps up part 2. Thank you so much for watching and for showing love to this story. It truly means a lot. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you're enjoying it. The final part will be out very soon. See you then!